All right, guys, welcome back to the MVM Show. I'm Titus, your host, and we got another campsite sessions, what I've been calling it. And I'm privileged to have Vanessa Carpenter on the show with us today. And I know the majority of you listen on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. So we appreciate you leaving ratings and reviews. I'm going to ask if you can also check out our YouTube channel. It's actually growing pretty fast. We're getting close to 1,000 subs. That's if you want to watch on video form, or you can even listen on there. So go check all those out. And today is something I've been wanting to do for a couple years, since I think we're going 3 years in this podcast. And I've been wanting to do it for a couple, is have Vanessa or even your dad on here. And by the way, thanks for coming on and sharing the story.
To be here. Thank you.
But I've been wanting to come on here and have you on here probably for a couple years. Either that or your dad or Jessica or anybody that was involved in that. But so I'm glad you're here today. And this story, guys, is an actually unbelievable story. I pretty much think I knew most of the details from years ago. I mean, we lived right down the street from you guys.
Right.
We were there, but we were actually in Oregon when this all happened. And Thomas, you guys know Thomas, he's on here all the time, my brother. He was best friends with John William, one of your little brother that was involved in this. And so it was a very, and again, we're just friends on the outside. We're not dealing with it. But I would say, if it's okay to say with you, it's a story of tragedy, but it's a story of forgiveness, love, and then miracles. Would that kind of put that in for short?
And hope.
Hope. So this might be a lengthy one, but I would say you are not going to want to turn this one off. You're going to want to listen to everything and see. There's so many different things. Actually, I'm kind of getting chills already, but there's so many different things and factors in this. And I believe you're very well spoken, Vanessa. So I don't think there's much I'm going to have to add or say, but let's get started. I guess where do you think it's fair to start in this though? Like, how do you start into something like this? Just the day or your background maybe?
I'll just back it up to kind of where we're at right now, camping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before that day happened, we were up here camping. We were up here for 2 weeks, doing what we've done our whole lives. You know, this was where we came as a family, something we just enjoyed doing. And we were up here enjoying ourselves. I believe that trip we were here for 2 weeks. And we cut it a little closer. Typically, we'd go a little earlier in August. But this time around in 2000, we cut it a little closer to the start of the school year. So when we got home from camping, I'll just start off that day. We had woke up, and my mom actually woke me and Anna up, and she asked us if we wanted to go to the dealership in Chowchilla with her to go. She was going to have our brakes serviced. And of course, school starting the following week. So we were like, oh, we're worn out from camping, the cleanup, all of that. We were just exhausted. And so we begged her if we could stay home. And she was like, well, let me think about it. Was a little hesitant. And anyway, she agreed. She's like, all right, that's fine. But you guys have to watch Ashley and John because they were the young ones. They get into stuff, think they can make breakfast. And
how old were they at the time?
Ashley was 9 and John was 7.
Okay.
And so we were like, all right, we'll watch them. Just let us stay home and sleep in. So she agreed. She's like, I'll be back fast. I'll be up to Chowchilla. I'll be right back. And you guys just stay in the house. And we were like, all right, that's fine. So her normal, she left the room. We never shut doors, anything like that in our house. When we were sleeping, we were kids. My parents' rule was you leave your doors open. And so anyway, she left, and me and Anna had fell back asleep. Well, when she left Anna's bedroom door open. And when we woke up, me and Anna both woke up to a very loud bang. And we both literally jolted up. We were like,
were you guys in the same room together?
What it was is, I can back it up a little bit. Anna had her own bedroom.
Okay.
Me and Ashley shared right across the hall from Anna. Literally,
You
our
and
doors,
Ashley?
me and Ashley
Okay.
shared. Our doors literally stared at
Okay.
each other, faced each other. And I was sleeping in my room that night, and Ashley shared a room with me. Well, John William kind of floated around. He just, 7 years
The
old.
baby.
The baby of the family floats around. And he had came into mine and Ashley's room that night and begged me to read him a bedtime story. And I was tired. I was like, no, I don't want to read a story. No, we'll just listen to stories, which is what we usually would do. We'd put on a cassette tape, listen to stories. And they begged me. Ashley chimed in. They both started begging me. And so I was like, all right, 1. And 1 grew to 3. Well, anyway, John William had crawled up by me in my bed while I was reading stories to him and fell asleep. It was a twin bed. I'm squished. I was like, Anna's got a queen bed. I'm going in there and sleeping with Anna. So
and how old are you?
I was 11.
You're 11, okay.
11. And so I had got up. Ashley and John were both asleep. And I went to sleep with Anna and fell asleep. And then that morning, my mom left. And we woke up to this loud bang and didn't know what it was. We both directly set up in our bed and just looked at each other like, what was that? Did you hear that? And she was like, yeah. Ashley and John, her words were, Ashley and John must be in the kitchen. We were thinking pots and pans, something. So we jumped up. When we set up and started getting off her bed, we both immediately noticed her bedroom door was shut. And we're like, why is that shut? And it's just crazy to me that we would just notice that, but that's how much we just left our doors open. Unless you're changing or something, our doors were left open. And we specifically remembered our mom walking out, leaving it open. So we're like, okay, well, that's kind of odd. Well, let's go. So she got up. She got to the door first. I came along the other side of the bed, kind of to the side of her, and she opens the door. When she opens the door, there's this figure standing there with his back towards us.
Right there by the door.
Right there at the door, right in the middle of the hall. And his back was towards us, and he was looking in. When my bedroom door was open, you could see.
But you were in Anna's room.
Anna's room.
Okay.
When our bedroom doors are open, you could see Ashley's bed from Anna's room. So we could see her laying there, but this person is standing there staring in her room, in my room, at her with his back towards me and Anna because we were in Anna's room. And we're just standing there like, who is this person? He had no shirt on. He had jeans on and curly hair. We were just dumbfounded. We don't know this person, just trying to make him out. About that time, he turns around and he looks at me and Anna. And immediately, for me anyway, Anna, I've talked to Anna. Anna's the same thing. Immediately, the first thing we noticed when he turned around wasn't automatically his face. It was what he was holding in his hand. And we both just looked down and he had our pitchfork in his hand. And my dad had recently bought that. We had horses, mules, chickens, you name it. We used it for pitching hay. And we both were like, why does he have that? Well, then our attention went to his face, and he is clenching that pitchfork in his hand and kind of almost like, shoot, get back, almost like prodding it at us.
And not saying nothing?
No, not saying anything. And it's just silent at that point. And we can still see Ashley laying in her twin-sized bed across the hall, flipping through those storybooks.
She didn't know he was standing there.
Didn't even notice him. And so we're like, okay, she's fine. Well, he then starts coming towards us. So instantly, reaction, you back up. So we start backing up. Well, I go back the way that I came from Anna's bed, and Anna just backs straight back. That's where she was sleeping, was near her closet. And when he enters the room, he looks at Anna, and he has just this angry, I don't even know, like you can't even describe it, just this hate-filled, like snarl at her. And just his eyes, it was just, I still get chills thinking about it. But he just glares at her, and he turns and looks at me. And I'm looking right at him, and he looks right at me, and he smiles at me.
Sorry, Vanessa. I might get anxiety.
You're fine, Sarah. I'm sorry.
I've never heard this story.
He smiles at me, and it, startled me because it was like, why are you growling? Almost literally growling at Anna, and then turns and looks at me and smiles. But to this day, the smile that he gave me was the smile of, you're fine for now, but I'll get you next, is the smile. It literally felt it's the most disturbing feeling ever. But I back up. Anna like nudges me. We're pretty close, standing really close. She like elbows me like back up. So I start backing up, and I back up the way I kind of exited the bed. Anna backs up towards where she exited the bed. And at that time, he tells Anna, lay on the bed. And my dad, that number one, you don't ever listen to a stranger, let alone when they tell you lay down.
Yeah.
And so Anna instantly, no. And he got angry. Well, he grabbed her up by the arm and flung her on the bed. Or no, let me back it up a little bit. He didn't quite fling her on the bed yet. He told her again, lay on the bed. And she again.
And how old?
Anna was 13.
She's 13, okay.
Mm-hmm. And Anna looked at him and like, and he raised the pitchfork at that point. And she kind of, okay, calm down. And like backed up to the bed, not sitting on the bed, but kind of like backed up, bracing against it. Like, okay, is this good enough? Are you happy now? No, he wasn't happy. He got angry. Anytime you would tell him no, anything. And the whole time we're both sitting here, Anna the whole time, Jesus, you know, all of this, because we're terrified. He's obviously here. Yeah. At that point, we knew he's here to do great harm. And I'm backed up in the corner watching all of this, and I'm thinking, I had so many thoughts rolling through my head, but the main thought was, what can I do to help? What can I do? I got to do something. And I was 11. You know, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, the guy was over 200 pounds, 6 foot tall. I'm 11, you know. And so I'm sitting there thinking this, praying in my mind, God help us. You know, don't even know where my other siblings are aside from Ashley. And he then gets angry at Anna, grabs her up by her arm, flings her against the headboard of her bed. And I just remember her back hitting that headboard, jolting the bed, and her just in pain. Like her face was just in pain. It hurt her back. And she then raises her hands. About that time, she pulls up her knees to her chest and raises her hands, and she's just pleading with him. Please, we'll do whatever you want. Please just don't hurt us. What do you want? Who are you? You know, and the whole time he's just speaking in this gibberish. A gibberish. Like I still to this day, I've never heard anything like it. Just a foreign, but there was someone there, like another being, I don't know, somebody there he was talking to. And he would yell at her to shut up.
Like, what do you mean talking to? Like, was he arguing with the person?
Yes. It was like there's two different.
Do you think there was like an angel there?
That or demons. I don't know. I think for him he was fighting demons. That's what I think. I truly believe he was fighting demons that obviously we couldn't see. But Anna kept pleading with him. He would tell her over and over again, shut up. And she wouldn't listen, would not stop, and just kept saying over and over again, Jesus. And about that time, he grew irate with her and raised the pitchfork and immediately started stabbing her in her knees, her hands.
Like
and
hard,
full blown, rearing back like this.
It's just killing me.
And, when that started, then it was a different gear for me. It was, okay, got to think something here defense-wise. What are we going to do? And immediately the first thought was a gun. I got to get a gun. And typically before our lovely state of California put into effect the storage locks, trigger lock, all of that stuff, storage gun laws, my dad, we all had. Jess, I didn't have one in my room. Ashley, I was 11, Ashley was 9. There was no reason for me and her to have one. But Jess, being the oldest, which she was 14, Anna was 13, they both had guns, a gun typically loaded under their mattress, ready to go. And my dad always had one in his closet, room, whatever, to where we could access it safely. And my dad was big on gun safety. Every one of us taught, raised, you use that for protection, hunting only. And if your life's not in danger, you don't even think about messing with it. Well, lives were in danger. So obviously that was the thought. I need to get that. And then instantly I was like, oh, I can't get it. Dad had just recently unloaded them, put them in the safe, ammo in a different spot. There was no way I could get in time into my parents' room, into the safe, up on the shelf to get the ammunition,
Right.
load it. There was no way. And if I could have even got out of the room, he was watching us both like hawks.
Right.
I probably wouldn't have even got out. So that went through my mind. Then that wasn't an option. So then it was, okay, baseball bat. Baseball bats are clean in the garage, completely different end of the house. So that wasn't an option. Then it was, okay, I could jump on him. What am I going to do? He's going to fling me off. There's nothing you can do. And so then it was like, okay, I can pray. And so I'm just sitting there watching, praying, begging for God to make a way of escape. And literally what I had reeling through my mind was, we were just up here camping. So all that was reeling through my mind. How could things be so amazing, peaceful? We were all laughing, having fun. How could that be last week? And this week, this is what's going on. How? How can this be happening? And Anna, it's weird when you're in a situation like that. You almost go into a different bubble. And so, like, I'm there, I'm present, but my mind's up here in this bubble of what to do, what's going on, and memories and just so much stuff reeling through my mind. And Anna's screams brought me back. And at that time, when I was refocused, I looked and he was still stabbing her. And she had made him so angry, he raised the pitchfork up, and this time he had raised it to her forehead. And she's just sitting there like this. I mean, shaking, bleeding as a mess, and crying, everything you can think of. And he put it on her forehead, raised it back to make his final blow on her. And the next thing we hear is this scream come from across the hall, "You leave my sister alone." And it was like, who is this? Ashley then got up out of her bed. How she laid there peaceful through that whole ordeal, a God thing. That's all we can chalk it up to. She's nine. And that instantly, he lowered the pitchfork, turned his attention to her, and went immediately to mine and Ashley's bedroom. And Anna then, she had stab wounds in her hands, her arms. She ended up getting one in her chest. She had several in her knees. I believe she ended up with 17 total stab wounds. And she got herself up off the bed, made her way to her bedroom door, exited, and I went behind her. And when I went behind her, I could see her, I glanced, seen her going, but then I immediately looked in the room where Ashley was and him. And again, I couldn't leave her. That's my baby sister. I couldn't leave her. And I'm standing there, and she immediately, the first thing she did was drop to her knees, wrap herself around his legs. And she goes to biting him, scratching him, pinching him. And the whole time he's stabbing her in the back with that pitchfork, in her back and the back of her legs. And you'd never know he was doing that. She, fearless, fighting like I've never seen before. Typically when you're hurt, what's the first thing you want to do? If somebody's hurting you, you want to get away.
Run, yeah.
She's not doing that. Well, the whole time this fight's continuing, he kept trying to rip her off his legs. He's stabbing her, and she didn't notice me standing there. Finally, she looks, and she sees me standing there. And she looks at me, and she's like, go. And I looked at her, and I was like, I shook my head. I didn't say words. I just looked at her, and I'm all, And she just kept looking at me like, you got to leave, And I just stood there, And about that time, he grabbed her up by her hair. Not many people know this, but Ashley was so tender-headed. This is a big thing to me that sticks out to me as her sister. I knew this about her. So tender-headed, you could barely pull her hair, and she'd scream and cry. I mean, tender-headed. He grabs her up by the top of her head, rips her up by her hair, and flings her against our bedroom wall. And I remember her standing up, and her back hits that wall, and her arms go up, and she's got, at that point, blood everywhere, blood on the floor. And he walks up to her, and he pulls the pitchfork back, stabs her right in the chest.
You saw that?
And when he did that, I could tell it hurt. Something was different. And she fell to her knees, And she's like pauses there on her knees, and for just obviously the stuff's going in literally probably not even seconds. And he's just like standing there looking at her almost like, are you going to fight more? You got more fight in you, or are you done? You know? And she crawls right back to him. Puts her arms, legs right back around him, starts again, scratching him, biting him, pinching him. And he starts in again, stabbing her more. And that time she looked at me, and I'm still there. And she just looks at me, flings her arm, and screams at me, go, go. I mean, with the look of, you better leave. And at that point, through all of this, that's the hardest thing I've ever done, even to this day in my life. Is sorry.
It's totally okay.
Is leaving her, you know, because I knew in that moment, I knew I'd never see her again here on earth, you know, I knew. And, you know, thank the Lord we have peace and we have a hope, you know, but I knew that was it. And so it was my moment to say goodbye, you know, and that for me is, through all of it, has been the most difficult thing ever to reflect on, to look back on, to live with. Is, could I have done more? Is there more I could have done? Did I miss something? Could I have done anything more? And all I can chalk it up to is no, there was nothing more I could do. She paid what any of us was going to have to do that day. She paid the ultimate price. She sacrificed herself so we could leave. And if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have got out there. So I ran, and I ran with the thought in mind, the only thing that can make me keep going is, you got to get her help. She's dying. Yeah. You got to get her help. Run for your life. You know, her life depends on you. And so I ran. And when I ran down our long hallway, there's a buffet. My mom had a buffet in our house. And there's a big old wooden buffet. And I'm 11. It was probably about my chest at that time. I wasn't very, very tall. And I ran up to that thing, and my dad had mules, so he had mule packs, the hard, like plastic cased ones, and he had them barricaded underneath that buffet.
Who did? That guy?
The attacker,
okay.
yeah, and he had barricaded us. His idea was to barricade that end of the house and that end of the house where we couldn't leave. And I looked, and I was like, okay, I can't get underneath it. I got to go over it. And still to this day, I do not remember exactly like getting over it. I remember lightly my hands touching the top, you know, in order to push myself over, but I don't remember getting over. I don't remember any of that. I do remember as soon as my feet hit the tile floor on the other side of it, the tile was cold. I got into that part of the house, which then was our front door. You walk in from the front door, and you see our big old living room and the kitchen. It was kind of very open floor plan.
I remember that floor plan.
Yes, very open. And so I get in there, and I look, and I'm like, everything's dark. The curtains were drawn. He had everything shut, isolated. My mom was never like that. As soon as we got up, the curtains came. Everything was open, you know. And it was dark. And I remember thinking, good grief, where am I even going to get down at? He had our dining room table barricading the front door. The dining room chairs, he had chairs pried up under everything. You remember the old school sectionals. Heavy things. Like, I still to this day couldn't even budge one. With the built-in arms, cup holders, all of that, the recliners. We had one of those. It was a big green one. And he had broke that thing down as a 3-piece. Broke it down and stacked them, barricading the slider door. So I couldn't get out the slider. I couldn't get out the front door. So it was okay, keep running. So I kept running. I made it to about the kitchen, and I could see Anna making her way. She was struggling, but I could see her making her way. And I was like, okay, I got to get past her and find a way out. And about that time, I could hear somebody barreling in behind me. And I turn and look, and it was him. He was coming. And he still had pitchfork in hand and running. But what was crazy is he wasn't, just running. He is running, but while he's running, he's swinging his hands in the air like fighting something in the air. And again, speaking in that language,
Right.
whatever you want to call it. And at one point when I exited the kitchen into the hall near Jess's bedroom door, my oldest sister Jessica, and I looked back again, and he was still swinging his hands. Well, at some point, while running and swinging his hands, he falls and lands his belly on our countertop in the kitchen. Lands just randomly just falls on the countertop, and then comes back up fighting again. And it was like, what is going on? This guy is just crazy. So I keep running. I make it to Jess's door, which is right outside the kitchen, into the other hall that goes to the garage door, laundry room and garage. And I look up at her door, and it was shut, which was not normal. I look up, and she has holes in the top of her door. And I knew something in me just said, don't even open the door. Don't mess with it. Keep running.
Jessica's
bedroom. Holes from the pitchfork in the top of the door.
On the door or above the door?
On the door.
On the door, okay.
On the actual
he was trying
door.
to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so I kept running. She had a little bathroom, but it was an itty bitty tiny window. There was no way of me being able to get out, let alone help Anna out.
Right.
There was no way it would work. So I was like, my last two options are the laundry room window or the garage door. That's it. And I get down there, and my mom had in that hallway near Jess's bedroom, there's a big wall, and she had a big bookcase on that wall loaded with books. Well, that was no longer there. When I get to the end of the house, he had shoved that down, blocking the laundry room door, butted up almost against the garage door. And then he had one of my mom's dining room chairs wedged underneath the garage door. I run up to that. I pass Anna. I run up to that, and I'm trying to wiggle that chair free, not budging it. And the more I wiggled it, it was like, it's not going to come undone. It wouldn't even wiggle. I'm sitting there shaking it, practically yanking on everything I could do. It would not move. And so he had that wedged under there extremely tight. I turn around, and I stand there, and I'm like, I guess this is it. That literally crossed my mind. This is it. I can't get out. This is it. So I know he's coming. Anna's coming. And I'm like, I guess me and her, this is it. This is where we're going to die. We're not going to leave. We're trapped, literally trapped in our own home. No escaping somewhere you think you're safe.
Yeah. Right.
You're home, you're home. You're safe. If you're not safe in your own home, you're not safe nowhere.
Yeah.
And I about that time, I'm the whole time you just keep a prayerful mind. The whole time I'm like, God, please help us. Please help us. I know you did not put us on earth to go like this. There's no way. And out of the corner of my eye, I get the house is dark. I get this little glimmer of light out of the corner of my eye. And I was like, what is that? I go over, and there were some coats. My mom had a coat rack, and there were some coats like butting up against that bookshelf. And he had left that laundry room door cracked. And that laundry room door between the bookshelf and that coat rack, some light had got through. And I seen that, and I was like, I got to try. I got to try, So I get up to that, and it was a crack probably every bit of about that big. And I'm like, I'm going to get through. I don't even remember how I got through. All I know is I got through. I was on the other side of in the laundry room, and I felt so safe, but yet not safe.
Right.
And I'm sitting there. I stick my arm out, and I'm waving at Anna. Come on, come on, come on. And she sees me, and she's coming. She's coming as fast as she can, but she's hurt. She's weak. She's pale as a ghost. She lost so much blood, and the trauma, you could just tell.
She's in shock.
She's in shock. She's suffering. And I'm waving, come on, Anna, come on. You can make it. Grab my hand. I just kept telling her, grab my hand. She gets there, or almost to me, and about the time she gets to me, I see his shadow coming down the hall, and I can hear him. And what I could hear is like this scratching, dragging sound. The best thing we could think of is dragging.
He was dragging that pitchfork on the wall.
Yeah, dragging it. And so I'm Anna, come on, even more, come on, you need to hurry, come on. And she gets to me, she grabs my hand, and everything I could do, I yank, I pull. And about that time when I yank and pull her through this little crack, He gets there and his hand grazes her foot, misses it. She gets in there with me. I hurry up, slam the door shut, and I'm holding the door shut because there's no lock, no nothing. And she's making a beeline for the window.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding the door shut and waiting. And the whole time we're doing this, he's shaking that doorknob.
Oh,
Shaking
He's
it.
not even trying to push through. That's what's
that's
weird.
more, and that's more scary than trying to. Push
He's
through.
messing with
He's messing with your mind.
He was playing. No, and it gets worse. He started in saying, "It's okay, girls. You can come out now.
Oh.
I won't hurt you. It's all right. Come out. I'll be nice now."
It's
Because he
like
could have
okay.
shoved you right through that thing.
Right. He could, if he moved that bookshelf there that
Yeah,
quickly,
exactly.
within, I mean, a matter of probably from the time my mom left to the time that lapsed, probably 30 something, 40 minutes. If he could do that, he could have easily shoved it out of the way and got in there. No problem. But he didn't. And so we're sitting there listening to this and thinking,
It's like a horror movie.
yeah, thinking in our minds, yeah, right. You think we're really going to believe that? Baloney, you know? And I'm sitting there, though, the more he kept shaking the doorknob, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to put this washer, something in front of this door to give us a chance. Well, Anna gets up on the counter. She gets the window open. She busts the screen out. She gets out, and I'm standing there. And you talk about a leap for your life. I'm standing there, and I'm like, part of me was let go of the door and run. Part of me is I let go. He's going to be in here and grab me, you know? So it was just, you know, it's amazing what your mind does to you when you're in situations like that. It's, you got to decide, split second decision of run now and hope you get out or stay here and know you're not going to get out. And so for me, it was run and try to get out. So I then ran, let go of the door. And keep in mind, this whole time, we could hear Ashley screaming and yelling the whole time. Well, when we got in that laundry room, again, back to the peace of God and stuff, it was like she knew we were safe. Once we got in that laundry room, she got quiet. It was no more noises. And we got out, and I hesitated when we got out of the window. Anna was ready to go to the neighbors. I paused and I said, "No, let's go back to get her out." I wanted to go to her window and try to get her out. And Anna was like, "Vanessa, no, she in other words, she's gone, you know?" And she's like, "We can't help her. The best help we can do is get help." And I was like, "Anna, I can't leave her. I can't leave her. We could get her out of the window." And Anna was like, "No, he come out the slide or anything. Let's go." So I listened. "All right, let's go.
Thank
You're
God.
right. You're right." And we left, and we ran down the side of the road. For whatever reason, we didn't stop at our first neighbor's home. They kind of had a longer driveway. I think is why we hesitated more than anything. But we were just, no, keep going. So we went on to the next neighbor's house. And about as we were closing in on their house, we see this person standing kind of on the side of the road, but against the fence. And me and her both were like, is that an angel? Who is that? You know, kids, we're like, is that an angel? Who is that? We know that person. As we got closer, it was Jess, my oldest sister. And she's waving us down, and we're waving at her. And you can imagine what goes through her mind then. What happened? Anna, why are you like this? I'm covered in blood. Anna's covered in blood because I was helping her. So we're just a mess. And we come up to Jess looking like this.
Yeah, right.
And she's like, "What is going on, guys? Someone was in our house." And we're like, "Yeah, and he's killing Ashley. Do you know where John is?" We didn't even know where John William was. We just knew he had to be in the house somewhere, but we didn't know where. And when we got in our hall initially, my parents' bedroom door was right there too, and their door was shut. So you couldn't see in there if he was in there, where he was. And
So am I jumping ahead too far to ask where Jessica? She just seen him in there and just left.
What happened with Jess is she had woke up that morning, and we were supposed to go clean my grandma Hanks's house. She'd pay us little kid money, you know, to go clean her house. And she was going to come pick us up that morning to go clean her home. Well, Jess had got up and she was like, "We're supposed to clean grandma's house. Why is grandma not here? Why?" And, you know, all this. Well, she went into the kitchen, left her room, went into the kitchen, and we had that cut out. Do you remember that? From the kitchen, you could see into the living room. It's kind of an old school thing where they do the big old cut out to where you can see.
In my mind, I could see your kitchen and I think, was it your, I don't want to mess the story up, but the, I guess that would be the kitchen. I'm thinking, what's it, the dining room?
Dining room.
Is the dining room in the front by the door, or was that the kitchen?
Dining room.
That was
So
okay.
yeah,
I can
right
see
when
that
you
in my
walk
mind.
in, it's dining. Right when you walk through the front door, to the right is the dining
Yep.
room, then kitchen,
Uh-huh.
and then living room all up
Yes.
front. So we had the cutout in the
Okay.
kitchen, so you could see in the living
Mhm.
room. So anyway, she walks out to that cutout in the kitchen, and she looks out, and there's this man standing there, and
Outside.
in the living
Inside.
room, and he was completely naked. And she's like, oh, and she
You're right.
said instantly he starts like, he sees her, but he starts like grabbing at the ground. She didn't know. She was like, oh my goodness, okay. So she went back to her bedroom. That startled her. And she
Right.
said she sat on her bed and she was thinking, who is this? Why is he here?
Yeah,
Why is he not
It's
dressed?
so odd that it would throw an adult off.
Yeah, anyone.
Like almost hard to like react to that.
Yeah. Well, she was just like puzzled. So she was like, I just sat in there and I'm like, who could that be? I didn't recognize him.
Mhm.
What was he trying to grab? And
Mhm.
instantly she was just like, something's not right. I need to go get help.
Mhm.
Well, and back it up a little bit too, she had checked the phone to make a call, and he had set our home phones,
Yeah,
took
back
it
then.
off the line and killed our line. So we
Mhm.
couldn't even make phone calls. He knew what he was doing.
He was there for a while preparing all that.
Knew what he was doing.
You had to be there at least an hour to put everything,
Yeah.
barricade everything.
Roughly, yeah, what we figure is anywhere, as soon as my mom left,
Uh-huh.
he came in
Uh-huh.
immediately. And so anywhere, they were guesstimating, law enforcement and all of that was guesstimating anywhere from around 45 minutes to an hour for all of that to lapse. But
So she was in her room
she was
trying to
in
figure out what in the world's going on
what
here.
is going on, and she said all of a sudden she was just like, something's not right.
Mhm.
This ain't right. So she opened her window. Thank the Lord
Yes, thank
she did
God.
that and not go back out. She opened her window, took her screen out, and went. And her window's front of our house. Our driveway is right at the she's literally next to our garage. So she's right at the front of the house. She gets out her window and she goes to the first neighbor, the neighbor we skipped.
Mhm.
Initially, she went down there and she knocked and knocked and knocked. No one answered. Well, that neighbor ended up, she was home, but she was out in her backyard.
Oh.
Couldn't
The
hear,
first
didn't
one.
know. The first neighbor, the one we skipped. So then we get down to the other neighbor, catch up with Jess, who was on the side of the road, trying to decide where she needed to go, what she needed to do next. And we get there and she was like, I knocked at them. No one's home. I went here and banged on the door. I can hear someone in there, but they're not answering. And we were like, well, we're going to have to bang.
She didn't have the level of
She had no clue.
get help like
No.
you
Like
guys
you
did.
did.
No, we
So
knew.
because you're like, I'll scream and bang the door in.
We
and if
didn't
it, yeah,
care.
right.
At that point, it was
Yeah.
our biggest fear was he was going to come out of the house. 'Cause
Right,
we didn't know
right.
what he was capable of. We already seen
Yeah.
what he could do. What more could he do?
Right.
So it was get help now.
Mhm.
And so we went to that neighbor, the one she said, it was the second house down, the one she said she could hear someone in there, but they weren't answering. So we went, we're banging, please help us. A man's in our home killing our sister. My other sister's out here bleeding, hurt. I feel so bad for them because you don't even, can you imagine somebody coming
Yeah.
to your door and help us,
Yeah.
Well, they were basically Spanish speaking only. So there was a language barrier for one. Well, the lady, she finally opened the door and she got mad at her husband and was telling him, open the door, we need to help. And so they opened their door and immediately she was like, oh my goodness, come in and sit, and we were like, no, we can't mess up your furniture. We
want to call your mom.
We wanted to get help. And so we get in the house and we were like, we got to call 911. Can we please use your phone? We got to call 911. And as soon as she was like, yes, phone's right there, and so Jess gets the phone. Jess calls 911. Anna, I'm trying to get her to sit down because she's a mess. And the first thing she asked the gentleman in the home was, do you have a gun? And he was like, mm-hmm. And she goes, can I have your gun to go help? And he, oh no. And it was an adamant no, obviously, And so Jess calls 911. She's on the phone with a 911 operator. And they're trying to make heads and tails of what's even going on because we're all in a whirl. She can hear Anna panicking. She can hear me talking. She can hear and dealing with Jess. And then them speaking Spanish, them panicking, so there's a lot of chaos and noise going on. And Jess was like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I need help here now. My sister, I got 2 siblings. We don't know where they're at. They're still in the home. And she goes, I got one here that's hurting. She's been stabbed multiple times. We need help. And the lady was like, well, do you know the man in your home? Do you know who this is? And no, we don't know him. We've never seen him before. And she's like, well, I got help en route. So we're sitting there, and we got Anna finally. The neighbor lady was like, no, you lay on my couch, was adamant. She wanted Anna to lay down. And so Anna laid down. She was calming down a little bit. So I was sitting there just watching her. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, my mom's coming home. My mom. And I immediately just bolted without even thinking out the front door and ran to the side of the road, stood by the fence post we've seen Jess at, and I could see the road, I could see the house, and I'm just waiting to flag my mom down, because I was like, if my mom comes home, she's going to walk right into a trap. I'll never see my mom again either. So I'm standing there waiting, and about the time I'm out there waiting, felt like forever, was not forever. But I'm standing there, and next thing I know, I hear sirens after sirens, unmarked cars, marked cars just fly up in our driveway, and men, all of them surrounding our house looking, and they're walking up to our house like, we don't even know because Jess wasn't in there. So Jess was having a hard time explaining even what was going on. So they don't even know what they're walking into. And some go to the back of the field, and I'm sitting there thinking, they're in the house, in the house, not in the field, in the house. And my mom, about that time, I see this, she had to get a little rental car, temporary car, because she had to leave our car there. And I knew which vehicle it was because we've had it before. And I see her, and she pulls up into the driveway and gets out of her car. And as soon as she gets out of her car, all these officers just like surround her. What are you doing here? What's going on? And my mom, later talking to her, she was like, they were just asking me, who are you? Why are you here? And she was like, I'm telling them this is my home. These are my kids. Where are my kids at? Why are you here? And so then in that moment, I knew, okay, mom's safe. They aren't going to let her go in the house. Mom's safe. I'm going back in there to be with Anna. Well, about that time, I go back into the house. Walking to the house, I hear pop, 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 numerous pops.
You did hear that.
And I knew then, okay, hopefully something's better than what it was sitting, but still didn't know nothing. And I get back in the house, the ambulance gets there, they take Anna, and finally they let my mom and my dad come down. Tons of family started flooding our church.
Okay, I'm sorry, I might have missed. So your mom showed up. What'd they do with her?
They kept her there for a while trying to figure out who she was. They were, okay.
Did she eventually come down where you guys were at?
They finally.
And she didn't know still what was going on in there, kind of?
She didn't know. She had no clue.
But was she right there when those gunshots were going off?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
My mom was there. And
your dad wasn't?
My dad, building contractor, so he left beating summer heat.
Yeah.
Left, I think, at like 4 that morning, if I remember him saying right. And so he is gone and working a little ways out of town. No clue. And so anyways, the ambulance takes Anna. We got family pouring in.
Into the neighbor's house.
Into the neighbor's house. And everyone's just like, what's going on? We don't even know what's going on. What happened? Why'd they take Anna away? No one knows. And so then we're sitting there like, and Jess still is kind of oblivious, don't even know exactly what all's happened other than a man's in our home, stabbing anyone in sight with a pitchfork. Other than that, she didn't know no details. She didn't know if we'd seen John. She didn't know anything. And so then it's me sitting there having to process all of this and not know if Ashley's even alive, if John Williams even alive, if he's even okay. And hoping, this whole time I'm hoping, Kate, please, one, let them both be alive. Second, if not both, please let John Williams have been hiding somewhere, something. And my mom gets to the house. My dad, I don't remember like much of like if they both came. I remember my mom coming in first, but I don't remember how much time lapsed before my dad got there. It don't feel like much. It might have been a little bit. But I remember my mom coming in. My mom didn't even ask questions. It was just immediately hugging me, squeezing me
Into
and
your neighbor's
Jess
house still.
in the neighbor's house still, because she sees two of her kids, you know. She knows Anna's in the ambulance. And then my dad gets there, and then my dad's like, what even happened? What's going on? I don't even, what in the world? Where is Ashley and John? What's going on? You know, Vanessa, did you see them? And it was like, one, not both, you know. And I didn't, it was hard because I was still in shock.
Right.
I didn't want to go into detail on what I'd seen Ashley go through, because then I knew immediately, because I knew in my mind, I knew in my heart, she was gone. There's no way she could survive what I seen her go through. And so I knew she was gone, but I didn't want to speak
I know what you're saying.
that to my parents. You know, that's hard. Like, how do you speak?
You don't want to speak it, period.
Period. No, because I was holding on to hope. She's going to be okay. She's going to make it. You know, I'm trying to, I think a lot of times when you're in shock, you kind of live in a little bit of denial on the situation, you know. She's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. Just telling yourself it's going to be all right. And then I remember, after that, I remember more family pouring into the neighbor's house. And I remember my mom and dad, some officers had came in, and they kind of huddled us around in the house, in the neighbor's house. And they were like, well, you know, this is a tough day. Here's what we know. You know, as of right now, here's what we know. And they were like, your son is gone, and your youngest is gone. Your youngest daughter. They're both gone. And I remember, for me, hearing that, it was just the worst sock in the gut I have ever felt. And I remember the look on my dad's face mainly. And I remember my mom, but I remember just the look on my dad's face. All his color just, you could just watch it, just gone. And tears just started pouring. And he was like, what do you mean they're both gone? And they were like, they're gone. You know, they died. And they were like, we don't know how easier we could put this, but they're not alive.
Yeah.
They're gone. And then they went in further to say, we tried. We did everything we could do. We tried. Your little girl, we tried to save her. Your little boy, he was already gone. What we found out later is John was the first one that got attacked that morning. And he got up from initially where he'd fell asleep in my twin bed from me reading stories. He'd got up that morning before my dad had left for work and hopped in bed with my mom. And so that's how he ended up in my parents' room. And that's where he died, was in my parents' room in their bed. He was asleep, sound asleep from what they figure. And he suffered multiple puncture wounds to the forehead, his eyes, and his neck. His neck was they said that was the one that did the job, because it severed his jugular vein. And his spinal cord was also severed. But he died in his sleep, is what we were told through autopsy reports and all of that. They said that he went peacefully. Ashley ended up suffering over 150 some stab wounds. She had several. He came in later. What we also found, I actually recently found this one out about probably a year ago. I've been trying to write a book in regards to all of this. And through that, you got to do a lot of backtracking, you know.
And get your facts straight.
And so I had poured through autopsy reports and the police reports and all of that. And one thing that I had just recently discovered, which was about probably a year and a half ago, I found it, was in that report, they had stipulated that when the officers got in the home and they went to her bedroom door was shut and locked, but forcefully opened. So that tells me when we left, she somehow, when he left her, she got up, locked her door.
Wow.
And we also found out she had a bloody handprint right underneath her window. So we know she was trying to escape. She was trying to get out, but she was so weak, hurt, probably already gone. And what we found out through a lot of the autopsy reports too is that she had suffered a lot of what they call them I can't think of the word.
Post-traumatic.
It was basically she's already deceased, and he went back in there and harmed her more.
Oh, wow.
He hurt her after she was dead.
Already dead. So
Post-mortem?
Post-mortem wounds. There you go. So she suffered a lot of those. John William, they feel like, also had several postmortem wounds. So he went back in there to both of them. And Ashley ended up, he had knocked teeth out. One of her eyes was knocked out. She had chunks of hair missing. Ashley.
I
And
didn't know all this.
yeah, she had stab wounds, several defense wounds to her hands. She had, I believe, one of her ankles was fractured from being stabbed so bad. One of her kneecaps was also fractured. She had multiple stab wounds to the chest, the back, her neck. The best thing they could figure is she died from bleeding out. And but he did go back in there. That's, again, back to the autopsy report and the police reports, is when he went back, he forced the door open that she had shut and locked and took out more rage on her after she was gone. So, you know, all that stuff's hard to hear and hard to cope and deal with. You know, going through that's already hard enough. But when you hear all that, it's like, how can somebody be so angry to two innocent children he didn't even know? He didn't even know. We didn't know him from Adam. Never met the guy a day in our lives. Never knew him. And it's like, how can somebody cause such significant harm to someone you don't even know? You know, especially two little children. One sleeping in his mom's bed, you know. And when John William was sleeping, my mom even had a plaque. I believe the plaque said, "God bless this home," and my great-grandmother's Bible right there literally right by her bed on her bedside table. And he had taken that plaque and turned it down, so you can't even read it, can't see it. And my mom, we backtracked, in every room of our house, we had a Bible. My mom had all the scripture pictures all throughout the home. So he had numerous reminders of, you know, look what you're doing is wrong, you know. And still, even with all of that, with all of our pleas, with all of us begging him to stop, praying, you know, all of that, he still pressed through and did what he did. And that tells you what hold, basically demonic hold, was on him. You know, it was insane. And through the whole attack and stuff, his eyes would even change color. His shade would change. He'd get like almost like a gray, where it was like you were peering down like a dark tunnel to where you couldn't even see a pupil, anything. And then they'd get almost like this orangish red tint when he was in rage. Yeah. And then he'd foam at the mouth. He'd spit everywhere. We already talked about the weird tongue he would speak in, and looking around and who he's talking to. It's just absolutely insane. Like, you weren't even, that's why I say we weren't even dealing with a human being at that point. We were dealing with a monster, is what we were dealing with. There was no matter how many times we pleaded with him, no matter how many times he'd see us cry, scream, it didn't matter. There was no stopping him. And I remember law enforcement, they went in. When they got in, I believe they first went in through the front door, and he was waiting there with the pitchfork. And so they backed out. They were like, nope, he's in here waiting. And so they went in through Jess's open window and came in that way, and he met them there at that door and had the pitchfork raised, and they kept numerous commands. They went back, and he ran out the back slider door, actually move the sectional. Ran out the back slider door, and an officer was out there and told him, "Hey, drop that. Talking about the pitchfork. And he just stood there and laughed at him, ran back in the house. And so officers came back through the front door, met him there, and he had the pitchfork raised at him, and they made numerous commands to him to drop it, and he wouldn't, and kept coming at them. So then they opened fire, and that's where he died, was in our entryway in the house. That was the numerous shots I heard. And I believe it took, I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was 10 shots it took to just get him down.
On the ground. Down.
And
I think when it first happened, you mentioned this earlier, but when it first happened, everybody, of course, right away says he was high as a kite on something. And what was the results of?
The toxicology report only came back indicating traces of marijuana.
That's it.
That's unbelievable.
Traces. That is all.
Shows the hold the devil can get on you.
It does.
And like you said, it shows, you know, a lot of people, and I don't know how many people listen to this are going to believe this or not, but that just shows that there is demon
Possession.
and that there is Satan that's out there. The Bible says to steal, kill, and destroy.
Mhm.
And it's
Yep.
not always just in the spiritual,
Mhm.
but the physical. In this situation, it was a physical, but also what it could have did. And this is kind of to go to the back. I don't want to end your story at all and take anything away, but it could have killed you spiritually, all of you, every single one of
Every
you.
one of us.
But how can we go into that? Because I don't want to short that story. Is there more to add on to this whole thing, or do you want to go into how you guys coped with it and how? I mean, because
Yeah, I mean, moving on from that day forward was a struggle. It was hard because so much changed. We could no longer. It was initially, do we go back? Do we move back into our home?
Yeah.
Do we?
No.
and how
And
could you? Yeah,
We
Absolutely
couldn't.
not.
As
Right.
girls, we're like, we can't, Dad. We can't move back in
No,
there. And
yeah.
that was supposed to be our forever family home. My dad built
Mhm.
that in the country on
And
our
you were gonna
10
stay there.
acres. We
Yep.
were staying there. That was our forever home.
Mhm.
And it was, sorry, we can't go back, Dad.
Mhm.
We can't get all that out of our minds. We
No.
can't. And so then it was, okay, now I got to sell our forever home. Where do we go now?
Mhm.
What do we do? And thankfully the Hatleys opened their home up to us.
Okay, is
and
that where you
that's
stayed?
where we stayed for, I think it was like 3.
Brother and sister Hallie?
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we stayed there.
Were they there too, or did they just move out? Or
No, they stayed there
Okay.
too. Yeah.
over on Sweetwater? Or no, they
Yes.
weren't. Is that where they were
The
at
one
still?
over by Childs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we stayed
Huh.
there with them. They opened their home up to us until my parents could get a game plan. And thankfully, my grandparents, my grandma, grandpa Hanks, my mom's parents, had a granny house
Mhm.
right next to them, and that was open. And so we got what we could from our home, moved in there till that you had to have a cleanup crew go in there and do all that. None of us could do any of that.
No.
You can't do it. And so, yeah, then it was like, well, we can't stay in this little granny house. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, tiny house with, 4 of us. And it was or 5 of us left, counting my mom and dad. But, it's like, where do you go? And it was hard. I'll never forget one of the most powerful moments in my life going through all of that was, as kids, you look to your parents for strength. You look to your parents for everything, right? Well, I watched my parents wade through that. And it was like, man, how are they going to handle all of this? That was Dad's son, both their babies. How are we as a family going to cope? I was 11 years old, but you think about those
Oh
things.
yeah, totally.
You think about them and you worry about them. And that had happened on a Wednesday. So church obviously was completely canceled that night. But Sunday, that very next Sunday, I remember my dad waking us up, let's go to church. We're going to church. And I was okay, let's go to church. We go to church, and obviously when it impacted our whole church. We're a family.
Yes.
It impacted every single one of us, like you talked about Thomas. John Williams' best friend. It impacts not
Right.
just your immediate household, it impacts everyone, our whole community, And we go to church, and I'll never forget them singing and everything in church. And I just kept watching both my mom and dad, just sitting there on our bench, watching them, watching their praise. Are they are they upset at God? Are they, And I'll never forget seeing my mom, just tears pouring down her face. She stands up, her and my dad both just standing up with the whole church and both hands raised in the air. And my mom got out from the pew and walked around the
Remember that.
altars crying, but with praise. And it was just like, that for me told me whatever my mom and dad have in that moment is what I want. And, that was, okay, that's hope. That's where restoration and all of that can come from, is that hope. And so from that point on, it just kind of became a building process for all of us, And it was, you go through grief, and grief has so many stages, and you think you're getting better, and then you just find yourself crying your eyes out for really no reason, and then you have to wade through the water of trauma and living with trauma, nightmares. I dealt with nightmares, horrific nightmares, for months, to the point of I was afraid to go to sleep. I wouldn't go to sleep. I'd stay awake for days, not sleep. And at the Hatley's house, in fact, I was just overran with fear of going to sleep and hadn't slept for days. And mom and dad was like, we're going to have Uncle Johnny's here, Brother Hatley's here. All of them are here. We're going to have them come in and pray for you. And I was laying on the bedroom floor where my parents were sleeping, and they came in and prayed for me. And I remember Uncle Johnny praying and saying, I speak peace over her mind. Let her sleep. She needs sleep. She needs peace from this torment. Let it leave her. And just praying for me, you know. And that night I went to sleep. That night I fell asleep. And I was so afraid to sleep alone. I slept with my parents that night. And I'll never forget that morning. The next morning, I fell asleep that night. I slept like a rock that night. And I'll never forget that next morning I woke up and my mom and dad's still in there in the bedroom, and my mom was up doing stuff and my dad was laying there, and he was just looking at me, you know, kind of like this. And he looked at me and he said, well, Vanessa, you could tell scared to ask if I had another nightmare. And he goes, did you sleep all right? And I was like, yeah, I slept great. And he was like, you did? Oh, okay, no bad dreams, no. And I go, no. In fact, I had a beautiful dream. And he goes, did you? And I go, yeah. And instantly his eyes start welling up with tears. And he goes, well, do you want to tell me about your dream? Sure, I'll tell you about my dream. And so I told him about my dream, and my dream was I woke up in in a meadow, not this meadow, but a meadow similar, you know, and I could hear in this, while I'm walking through this heavenly place, colors I've never seen. I'm walking and I hear roaring water. And I was like, ooh, I want to find where that's coming from. So I walk and I walk and I walk through this meadow. All of a sudden I come up on this big old waterfall, and it's just massive waterfall streaming through this big old meadow. And I'm just standing there looking at that water in my dream, just looking at it, just taking it in. And next thing I hear is laughter. And I hear little kids laughing. And I'm like looking, where are these laughs at? The most, you know, when you hear kids laugh, it's the most joyful laughter ever.
Yeah.
Like makes you almost happy. They're so happy, you know. And so I hear that and I'm like, I want to find them. I want to find where that's coming from. So I'm looking, and I look back to the side of me where the waterfall is coming into that mound of water, and I look and I see 3 white horses. 3 white horses. I see Ashley on one of them, John William on the other, and my cousin Cody, who he had passed away from leukemia at age, how old was he? He was 6, I believe, when he passed away, but we were really close. And so I lost him. So 3 people in my life that impacted me when they died. You know, I looked and I was so excited in my dream, but this mound of water was between me and them. I couldn't get to them. But I'm standing there waving and, hey, don't leave me. I'm over here, you know. Hello, notice me. They didn't notice me a bit. They were laughing. As they got closer, I could see no holes. Like that's the first thing I looked for was holes, wounds. Nothing on either of them. My cousin Cody, when he died, had a bald head. He had a beautiful head of hair. You know, all these things, they were made whole. And so for me, instantly, my takeaway from that dream was they're made whole. They're okay. They're at peace.
They're happy.
They're happy, and they're not hurt. You know, they're in heaven. They're not hurt, because I'd been tormented so much with, are they still hurting? Are, you know, at 11, and, you know, I'd asked Jesus to live into my heart and in my life and all of that, but you don't fully grasp at 11 really what it's about. You know what I mean? And so for me, witnessing that in that dream that's what it is. When you cross over to heaven, you are made whole. You know, you don't carry what's been hurt here. You don't carry that there. You're made whole. You're better. You're well. And from that point on, my nightmares were fewer and fewer and fewer. I'll still have one on occasion, but
even to this day.
Even to this day, I still deal with like post-traumatic stuff as far as like I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. Loud noise, anything like that will startle me.
Like a trigger.
Yeah, it'll re-trigger stuff. Certain smells. If I smell funeral homes, I can't hardly do them. The smell just kills me. Even I'd talk to you about me working in law enforcement.
Yeah.
That was hard because the smells.
Do you think that somewhat helped you because it forced you into that? I mean, you chose to do that. Do you think it kind of helped you, forced you into that too, in some ways?
Yeah, that in turn, when I went through that, my goal now is I want to help others hurting, you know? And so for me, law enforcement, what better way? You know, that I seen the help that they were for us. I want to be the same in return. And so that's why I chose law enforcement and all that. But it's hard. Like, that was hard because, you know, it's reopening you to all those elements, you know, and smells, and I hear certain sounds, and I remember things, and it's just, you know, it's a lot. But, you know, when you have the Lord living in your heart and your life, and you have that peace, there's nothing you can't overcome, you know. And another thing is so many people want to blame God, you know, versus blame the person or what happened or who did it and all of that. I could never blame God. God didn't do that. God didn't give him the pitchfork and say, you go do this. No, God gives each of us, you, me, Sarah, each of us, our own minds, our own time to decide what we're going to do with our lives. He made that decision for himself to do that. God didn't, you know, God didn't. And so how can I blame God for doing that? You know, you can't. But with all of that, when you process all of that and break it all down, in turn, ultimately you're left with peace. You're left with hope, you know. And still today, I'm so thankful for that hope, because, I mean, how miserable would we be if we didn't have a hope of heaven, a hope of seeing our loved ones again? Without that, there's nothing, you know. So I don't know. It's just, you go through that, and it is just a building process of processing trauma, processing grief, processing moving on, processing selling a home, processing what do we do now? Where do we go? Do we stay here? Do we move somewhere else? You know? And I mean, through all of that, your biggest hope and your help is obviously God, your faith, but your church family it's irreplaceable. Honestly, you can't even put words to it. When you go through something like that, you rally around each other, you help. And
can I ask a question? So most people going through something so horrific would be obviously go to a doctor and be put on medication. And can you share if you guys got on medication for that?
We never did. Obviously, our doctor, all of them said we needed therapy, we needed a psychologist, we needed meds. You know, obviously with my nightmares and stuff, that was obviously, yeah, she needs help. And for us, it was no. Our help is prayer. Our help is our faith. And my dad's answer every time was, we've got our pastor. You know, if we need counseling, if we need help, we go to our pastor for that. And, you know, many times Uncle Johnny would come over and talk to us, help us through things, you know, and not just that, but through prayer, through our church, going to church, you know, all of that in itself was. But I recently, or last year, I had spoke. My dad spoke at the Merced College, and for years. I think it was 2 years after our tragedy happened, and he spoke for. He's a psychologist. And why he had my dad come and speak is because he's like, my mind's boggled.
Right.
This don't happen.
Understand it.
This don't happen. They should be,
you should be
on medication.
Antidepressants.
They should have a psychologist or a therapist that they see.
He wouldn't know.
He
didn't understand.
He don't understand. He don't understand. And he was like, I just cannot. You guys boggle my mind because you're not on nothing. And I spoke for him last year since my dad moved away.
He's still having you.
My dad threw me out for that one. Said I'm out of California, but you have her. Yes. And so I spoke.
I went to one of those when he.
Did you?
Yeah.
So he had me come and speak, and right in the class, he stops and says, Vanessa, tell them what you've been on. They want to know.
Because most people would be on antidepressants, anxiety pills, sleeping pills, all of it.
Everything.
I mean, people go put on it just because they don't know why. They just get put on it. To me, that's just, I know why you're not.
Yeah. What was the reaction of the people in that college class? It was called college class,
Yeah,
right?
college class, yeah.
Could you see it? I mean, I'm sure every time I remember oh, sorry, go ahead. What was that?
It was instant.
You could see it?
Oh, you can see it instantly.
Did you tell the whole story just like this?
Pretty much. I kind of, obviously I'm trying to be more raw and share more finer details. Because you got a time limit at the college too. Yeah. So I have to really limit it. But I shared quite a bit. And I mean, instantly it's just, you hear a lot, what? Oh, are you crazy? whatever. No, really. And then they're like, I got a question. I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah. And they're like, no therapy whatsoever. No, nothing. And I was like, unless you consider from time to time, years ago, talking to our pastor, that's the only therapy we ever had. And they're like, medication, nothing to help you sleep, nothing to help us sleep.
But if you
Nothing.
would have got on those things, you'd probably still be addicted to them.
Oh yeah, you depend on them.
Right,
You know, you get to a point you depend on those things. And another thing is, my dad was adamant on is, you know, when you have faith, when you believe in God,
Mhm.
that's what's going to see you through. You know, not medications. You know, not none of this stuff. And he didn't want to see us going down that
You
route.
needed healing. You didn't need a Band-Aid on
No.
top of
Yes.
it.
Exactly.
And talking about the because that's PTSD, right? So dreams and nightmares and all that stuff. So it's so a lot of people hear that term, they always think of people in war, right?
Oh yeah.
But all it really is if you get in a bad car accident, the sounds you hear, my helicopter crash,
Right.
deployment, all those different things that happen.
Right.
Sounds like you said,
Yeah.
I so relate. The smells.
Yep.
It instantly brings that.
You're taken back to a place you once were.
Like it just
Right there.
happened. So we know that that's gonna be forever, and I would say maybe well, how could I say that? The power of that reaction the first few times compared to what it is 20 or 30 years later, maybe is not as strong and overwhelming.
Right.
And not that it doesn't affect you.
No.
But and I'm not trying to take away from your story, but when they would shoot rockets in, that we had these sensors that could alert you as they're coming inside the base. And you were supposed to take cover, which you can never get there in time anyways before they hit. So you just better be ready to go. But that sound that would warn you to take cover, our high school played that. Still does it to this day. It's like a tone that goes out to let them know, I guess, lunch is over or something.
Wow.
I'm not sure. The first time it happened to me, it doesn't really anymore. It still makes me think about it.
Right.
I still think about instantly about deployment. And again, it's nothing like, I'm not even comparing the situation, trust me. But before I knew it, it was straight up reaction. I was on the ground, my heart was pounding. I can remember right where I was at. Yeah. I was in our garage by the washer and dryer, dropped to the ground, heart's pounding, sweating. Yeah. And I was like, I don't even know how I got here right now.
Right.
You know?
Laughing. Yeah.
So I totally understand the trigger stuff of that PTSD situation. Yeah. And a lot of people don't even know it.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, just from a car accident, you're like Sarah, nervous when you're driving to rear end somebody. She's been rear-ended. Like we've all. Yep. But again, to go back to your story, not taken away from it, everybody listening out there, you know, I don't know who's listening. I don't know how you could hear the story and not cry. And let it affect you, because the power of, I'll say, God in your guys' life and the training, even though you guys were so young, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old, 11-year-old, a 13 and a 14, it's like, you know, thank God your parents instilled in you to say the blood of Jesus. That's what's been instilled in my life, to call out to him when you're in need. And if there's anybody listening to this podcast and you need God in your life, and you don't really, maybe you don't even know what you're searching for or looking for, you need God, and he can help you. He can change you. He can save you. He can set you free. It doesn't mean because you are a Christian, you have Jesus living in your life, doesn't mean you're not going to face things.
No.
It doesn't mean you're not going to go through the fire to where you don't feel like you can live another day. But what it does mean is, like you said, you have hope, you have someone to go to, and someone to be there for you, and beyond this life. Yeah. And that's hard for a lot of people to accept, that there's something beyond this. It's not going to be a big party. It's not going to be a bunch of this and that. There is a heaven and there is a hell. There is a judgment seat. And if we have our names in the Lamb's Book of Life, we ask him to come in their heart. And if there's anybody out there that wants to, all you have to do, you may not know fancy words, you may not know how to pray. I've prayed with people that said, I don't know how to pray. All you have to do is say, Jesus, Jesus, save me. Jesus, come into my life. And I don't want to end the podcast this way, but I would like to say a prayer right now for anybody out there listening to the story. And then I'd like you to end it with, to me, a great message of hope with Josiah and them. So I'm going to take my hat off real quick and say a word of prayer. Actually, would you mind praying too? I'll say a prayer and then maybe you can say a prayer. Lord, we thank you, God, for this moment and this time. Lord, to hear this story, we wish our nature, being a friend, a lifelong friend, wish to God this would never happen. And we don't always know your plans, God, but we know that you have everything in control. And if there's anybody listening to this podcast, this episode right now that maybe doesn't know you or maybe has known you in the past, Lord, that has slipped away from you, I pray, Lord, that you would touch their lives and move in their vehicle, Lord, at the work, if they're listening to it right now, and that you would help them, Lord, come back to you. Lord, that you would show them your love, that you would show them the hope that you have to offer, and that you would come into their lives, Lord, and touch them right now in the name of Jesus. Lord, for anybody that's faced hurt or pain or suffering, God, I pray that you would touch them and strengthen them, let them know that you are there, and that you will never leave nor forsake us, that you're a friend that sticketh closer than any brother. Pray, God, that you would give them a special peace and a special comfort in their storm, whatever they may be facing, Lord, we ask in your name we pray. Amen. Vanessa, if you'd like to say a prayer too.
Lord Jesus, God, I ask you, Lord, that anybody that's listening to my story, my family's story, Lord, if you know of anyone that's out there that's experienced loss, experienced heartache, experienced trauma, whatever kind it may be, Lord, I pray that you would just wrap them in your loving, protecting arms. Let them know that there's a peace despite despair, Lord. There is a comforter, Lord, and you're our comforter. God, I pray that you would just surround them with hope, wrap them in your arms, and let them know that it's going to be okay. Might be difficult, but it's going to be okay because you're there. Lord, you are our healer, you're our sustainer, you're our hope, Lord. God, I thank you for what you've not only done in my life, Lord, but what I know you're going to do in somebody else's life that may be listening to this, that may hear about this, that may talk to somebody else about this, Lord. I pray that you would just use this as a platform for you, Lord, that you would just use this as a testament of what you can do, what you can bring people through, Lord. God, that we are but vessels, Lord, but as long as our vessels are full of you, God, there's nothing that we can't get through or overcome, Lord. I pray that you would just be with everyone, comfort everyone. Use Titus's podcast, Lord, to just help other people, Lord. Be that outlet for others to pour into when they need a hope, need to hear something when they're in despair, Lord, need something that'll encourage them, uplift them, Lord. I pray that you would lead and guide our words, our hearts, Lord. Help us, Jesus. Lord, we thank you for this. We thank you for all you've done for us. We thank you for your peace and your comfort, Lord. We thank you for all you've been to us and all you're going to do. Jesus, in your name we ask and pray and thank you. Amen.
Amen. So,
Speaking of forgiveness, and I'm not good on all the details, but didn't your dad talk to the the mother
Yes.
and say, like, you guys, there's no
are
hurt?
you guys okay? Are you too hot? Because I
No.
know you're kind of in the sun now.
It's all right.
Yeah, I'm fine for now. Yes, my dad met with her and her pastor. And of course she was
Devastated.
apologetic, devastated for what her son, did, but also grieving too.
For her son.
She lost her son, and what a way
What a
to
way to
lose.
go.
What a way to lose your son. I mean, we always say we would rather be in our shoes than hers. We would. And my dad told her that day, she was just so apologetic and so just sorrowful. And he told her, he said, we forgive him. We can't hold no hard feelings towards him, and we definitely don't towards you,
Right.
You've done nothing wrong,
Right.
there's nothing to forgive towards you. And because she was just beating herself up about it and just sobbing, and it was like, what do you say? My dad's sitting there apologizing to her losing her son, And I mean, it was honestly a powerful moment,
Mm-hmm.
seeing that,
Mm-hmm.
seeing her being in the place she was in, but also witnessing my dad be like, we forgive,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
He did what he did, but that doesn't mean we're going to hate you and hate him. And, you don't, there's no room for that. There's no
Mm-hmm.
room for hate. There's no room
No.
for unforgiveness. That in itself is poison,
Mm.
and yes, he did speak with her, and it was really, really moving watching that and listening to
It
that.
probably brought some closure to her life.
It did. I'm sure it did. And she thanked us over and over again for even meeting with her.
Yeah.
She was like, I didn't think you guys would agree to meet with
Oh,
me.
she requested it too.
Yeah. And so we were like, no, yeah, she wanted to speak with us. She wanted to apologize. And my dad was like, there's nothing to forgive. There's nothing to forgive. That was his choices, not yours. And, but it's the truth. You have to forgive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that maybe in this part of it, so I think the miracle thing was your brother and sister afterwards.
Yes.
So you lost your brother, your 7-year-old brother, your 9-year-old sister. You guys were, were almost sugarcoating what those several years had to have been like. What you guys faced, you can't even put it in a podcast.
No.
You don't have enough time.
No.
Because you guys are living with that every day. But how much longer was it? What was the process? Where your brother and sister from now?
They, how that all came about is us kids, we were, obviously we lost the babies of the family, so things were quiet, and we were like, Mom and Dad, it's too quiet. We miss them. We miss having young ones around. We miss them. And of course, Mom and Dad did too, and it was like, but, we're Mom and Dad, we're past that. We aren't having no more, that's done and over. So adoption was brought up, and, my dad obviously he struggled. He was like, I can't. He goes, I don't feel right saying, sure, let's try that if I'm not fully on board.
Yeah.
And so he was just right from the start, I can't, like that, I just can't. And so us kids just kept the begging, please, we miss them, because it was hard, you go from 5 kids to 3, and the 3 of us were the older ones, so you lose that instantly, the little kids, the craziness, the chaos, you lose that. And it was hard every day getting through because you always had 2 people depending on you to help them get dressed, help them pick out clothes, feed them. That was gone. All the rest of us, we were do whatever we needed. And so my mom, my mom missed that. That was her babies. And so she was on board with the idea of, okay, yeah, that we could maybe do something like that. We'll get figured out. And she was on board with trying adoption. It was a little harder, but she missed that, And a lot of people are like, well, we get this a lot. Were you trying to replace them? No. You can never replace what's lost. You can't replace what's been lost. You can't. It's never going to be the same. But what we were trying to bring back was that sense of joy in our home, that laughter. And so my parents, after us begging them, let me think.
I was going to say, how long was that?
Ashley and John died in August of 2000. And then my mom, let me think, she lost because I don't want to go too much into that. She ended up, we'll just go here. She talked my dad into it. My dad ended up going and getting a reversal done in Texas. He ended up, they conceived, and we found out it was twins. We came up camping. My mom ended up having a medical emergency up here, almost dying herself. She miscarried.
Oh, maybe I do kind of.
She miscarried
what year
both
was
of
that?
them. That would have been, the twins were born in 2002. So that would have been 2001.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So, 2001, we experienced loss again, 2 babies.
She was pregnant with twins?
With twins.
I did not even know that.
She was pregnant with twins.
I remember.
And Miss came up here camping.
How far along was she?
I want to say right under 4 months.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I don't know how I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was pregnant. We were up here camping. She ended up having a UTI that we didn't know about, and they feel like that triggered her body to reject the pregnancy, and we almost lost her up here. We had to get her. We literally
not know
had
that.
to carry her out of the trailer, load her in the truck. It was again scary,
Traumatizing.
traumatizing. I literally would not leave my mom's side. My dad
bet.
was like, "No, you stay here, help clean up," and I was like, I'm going with my mom. And thankfully I did, because he's driving, so I'm in the back popping her, making her wake up, because my mom was
Really?
literally, she was going.
Oh my goodness.
She had no color, no life in her, no nothing. And we get her down far enough to the ambulance from here,
Mhm.
and they got her loaded up and took her to Fresno, and she ended up having to go through all of that stuff there. And, you know, of course, after you go through that, your body has to recover. So they
Mhm.
were like, no, don't even think about conceiving for a while. And so then she ended up getting pregnant again several months later with twins again,
Wow.
and ended up being a boy and a girl.
Hmm.
And crazy is, a lot of people might think this is a silly detail, but to us it's important. It stands out at the mindfulness of God. Ashriel, Ashley was older than John William. Ashriel came out first, 7 minutes sooner than Josiah. And so, it's just the little details.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh, yeah.
God just reminding you, I'm faithful.
And I know.
remember you.
Mhm.
I remember you,
And John William was 7.
John William was 7 when he
Yeah.
passed away. And so just so many little details that go into all of that. It's just unreal. But anyways, my mom had them, and oh my goodness, they have been the light of our lives. They have been,
Josiah is so sweet. They both are, but Josiah is just
yes,
so
they
sweet.
are, and they're totally opposites
Yeah.
as far as what they like, what they don't like. It is so funny, but they literally instantly, it was a void filled. That, Ashley and John's gone. They're not coming back. But yet you can still, in the midst of sorrow, have joy, have peace, have a fulfilling part of your life taken care, something fulfilled in your life that's hurt, that void filled. And that's what they did. They literally brought restoration to our home, to all of our lives. We tell them all the time, we don't even know what we'd do without you guys here. And, we always tell them, as much as we miss Ashley and John, we would never ask them back, because that'd mean we'd never have you two.
Yeah.
And if we didn't lose, we wouldn't have. So,
Right.
it's a miracle, honestly.
It is.
It is.
Yeah. And that's why I was trying to bring this all to. It comes, tragedy, but then, the whole thing is just mind-boggling.
There's, I tell people all the time, there is, no matter how sorrowful of a time you're going through in your life, just remember there's always going to be beauty from those ashes, from that despair. There's always going to be something beautiful. As long as you hold on to hope, hold on to your faith, walk close to God, especially, all the time, but especially when you're going through deep sorrow, you cling to that. Another thing that, I like to always bring out is people are so quick, and I understand it, quick to want to erase those memories. Once their loved one's gone, they want to erase that, hide the pictures, put this up, forget the memories. I get that a lot. And don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that. Remember them, remember them. I promise it makes it so much, grieving so much easier. Like, I still to this day, every birthday, Ashley's birthday, every birthday of John Williams, and every August 23rd, I'm at the cemetery. And I sit there, I cry, I get more out, and every time I walk away, I feel so much better because of it, And it's so important in the healing process is to remember them. They were a part of your life. They mattered. They mattered when they were here. They should matter even when they're gone, know. And for me, they significantly mattered, because if it wasn't for Ashley, I wouldn't be here. So she saved me, know. She saved me. God's grace saved me, And ultimately, John William, I always point out, if it hadn't been him being the first one to go in his sleep, it very well might have been me or Anna in our sleep, or Ashley in her sleep, and then me and Anna left to fight. John William was the first initial ultimate sacrifice in there, asleep, didn't even know, couldn't even run if he wanted to, because he was asleep, couldn't even defend himself, but yet he took that, and it bought us all more time, And it's amazing. It's amazing how God works and his mindfulness of his own. You know, he's mindful, and it's important to remember that.
Yeah.
You know, even when I keep telling myself over and over again, all the time I catch myself telling myself this every day is, you know, when you're going through difficulty or difficult times, it's hard not to be, oh, poor me, this is hard, you know, I'm sick of this, that, and the other. But, you know, don't shortchange God's faithfulness, because all you got to do is look back. Look back, and his faithfulness is all over your life, you know, and that in itself will remind you, you know, he brought you through that, he'll bring you through it again.
Yeah.
Whatever you're facing now, he'll bring you through that too, and more, you know. You just got to stay faithful to him, he'll stay faithful to you, you know.
Yep.
But I don't know, he amazes me. And every time I reflect back and rethink over everything, it boggles my mind, even that, you know, how did all that transpire, and how are we where we are now? You know, I look at my kids and I think all the time, if it weren't for my sister and God's grace, you wouldn't be here, you know. And it's amazing. You see his handiwork in everything that you look at, you know.
Oh, I just lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you something else. Oh my goodness. Oh shoot. Wish I wouldn't have.
You wish you would have interrupted her.
Yeah.
Interjected.
If I don't say something in the moment, it's gone.
Pick me.
But you're doing it so good. I didn't want to cut in. That's gonna bug me too. Oh man, what was I gonna ask you? Well, this has been a long one, but it's been awesome. It's been awesome, and I appreciate. You know, I'm the kind of guy that if someone wants to talk to me, I want to be the person you can open up into and talk to. But I know it's been something you guys have shared so many times, so I figured it'd be something that we could have you guys on and do. You know, because you've already shared it, and I know so many people listen to this, and it would. You know, I know it can help somebody out there, and I know it's helped me. And if anybody, you know, share this, and again, I'm not trying to use this story to grow anything. I'm using the story because it's a message, like you said, of hope. And my goal has always been to help people, whether it's kill more ducks or get their guide license, or with the spiritual side of things. And if there's so many hurting people out there, we all face we all face things. And I don't want to see anybody, I don't care if I know you from Adam, to go through anything and you have to go through it alone. There is someone out there, God and his son Jesus, that can help you and strengthen you. And know that you're not the only one. You know, there's a story that I would say high chances are most people that are listening to this have never heard nothing like that probably in their life. Maybe read it in a book, but surely have not heard it firsthand. So I don't definitely want to take advantage of this, but share it around. If you think, you know, somebody's going through something, send this to them. Let them hear the story of the Carpenters and what they've went through and how God helped them and strengthened them. And through that tragedy, through that unbelievable storm and whirlwind of life, not to just include the tragedy of what happened at your house, but then losing your mom and dad, and all the while, we all know they're not perfect. You're not perfect, but we know that we hold on to someone who is. And that's what will help us get through it and make it so. I wish I could remember what I was going to say.
He's talking, so
I'm
It's like I'm rambling.
As soon as I turn the button up. But I appreciate you coming on,
No,
Vanessa.
thank you for asking.
Thank you for sharing. So, to be honest with you, so eloquently, a lot of times I get on here and I stumble over my words, or I know people go nuts when I'm doing a podcast because I say I can't think of the word, but you very well spoken, and I appreciate you coming on, and thank you, Sarah.
The opportunity.
Thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
For melting.
No, I've never heard. I just hear tidbits. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.